November 26, 2005, item number 107. Today's guests are Dan, Chuck, and Bill from the Reverse Engineers.
Podcast411.com. Listen different.
Hey, all you people out there in podcast listener land. This is Bruce Murray from the Zcast at zcast.com reminding you to listen different with Podcast 411. Take it away, Rob.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Rob, and this is the Podcast 411 podcast. And thanks, Bruce, for that intro. As always, anytime during the show you have some feedback, give us a call at 206-666-HELP. That's 206-666-4357. Or send audio comments to podcast411@gmail.com. Thank you. Now, since this is a longer interview and it is a Saturday, we're going to skip the news and notes. We're going to get right into the tech tip from Michael Carino. Here we go.
This is Michael Carino from digitalmediacastexperiment.com with another Podcast 411 tech tip. Here's a tip for professional broadcasters who are looking into getting into indie podcasting. First of all, you should probably attempt to unlearn just about everything you know about broadcasting. Well, kind of. The biggest thing you want to think about is that you're no longer talking at people. Hopefully you already know this, but some people who have crossed over have not yet realized that indie podcasters have a more intimate relationship with their listeners. True, conventional broadcasting should be this way too, but unfortunately, probably through no fault of yours, it's not. Most podcast listeners want to be talked to or conversed with, not talked at. A lot of them have foregone conventional media for podcasting for that very reason. You can use your already visible personality to do some great things in podcasting. Just don't make the mistake of thinking that you're doing a podcast is just a subset of your doing conventional media. Broadcasters, good luck in this new universe, and thank you, Rob, for letting me talk to your audience.
Well, Michael, as always, thank you for that tech tip, and I think that's advice that can go out to any podcaster. Make sure you keep your podcast in a conversational manner. Let your audience know that they can be part of your show at any point in time. Like this podcast. Any point in time you, as a listener, want to contribute to the show, you have some advice, you have some feedback, send it to me at podcast411@gmail.com. We want to make you part of the show, and good podcasts and good podcasters make their audience part of the show. They don't talk at them. They talk with them. They are their friends. That is what a good podcast is about, creating a conversation. Well, anyway, we're going to go ahead and get into our interview with the Reverse Engineers. This is a band that has done a podcast, and you'll hear all more about the format in the interview, but they have a great podcast. If you're a band, you're thinking about doing a podcast, then you really need to listen to this interview. These guys get it right. Their formula on how they did their podcast is the one that all bands should follow. Well, anyway, here we go. Dan, Chuck, Bill, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rob.
I'll start you all out, and I'll let you each answer this question, and it might be the same answer since you're all brothers, and that is, what was your first computer?
This is Bill here. I think I had a TRS-80. I don't know if it was a color computer or not, but I guess it probably had 32K of RAM or something.
I think we also, didn't we have the Atari 1200 XL or something like that?
Yeah, that was after. That I guess that was the first one we actually owned. I remember borrowing from the school for a Christmas vacation in like 6th grade or something, a TRS-80 computer to do an assignment, and had the whole cassette tape drive to record all your data. But yeah, I think the first one we actually owned was a 1200 XL Atari. So what was the oldest computer that you've heard a response to? I mean, did someone have like a Sinclair computer or?
Well, Adam Curry had the Sinclair D80. He had the first Sinclair. And that's an old one, but then there's been people that, like Doug Kay, had a computer that was just, I think his was the oldest of all of everybody, and some people use some IBM punch card machines that, they didn't own them. It was like mainframe things.
The Univac or something.
Yeah, nobody's come up with the Altair. I mean, the Altair technically was the first personal computer, so that would technically be the oldest that you could get to. But no one said that yet.
Wow. Okay.
But people have had, Apple IIs and TRS-80 Model 1s and things like that. Since you're a band, and whenever I have people that do music podcasts and bands, I always like to ask them, what was the first LP you ever had?
I remember listening to, I don't know if it was mine, but I remember listening to Meet the Beatles in my grandma's record collection when I was like 4 or 5, just, wearing that thing out. That we were obviously not, around then, but that was a really cool record to listen to.
Yeah, my parents had our parents had the Beatles' second album. It was always fun. I guess it was funny when they released things in America in the early days. They released something with a different name where it was a different collection. It wasn't Meet the Beatles necessarily. So they had the Beatles' second album is what it was called. I don't know if it was kind of a compilation of the first and second or what that was about, but it could have been just with the Beatles or something.
Oh, I had Rollover Beethoven on it and those things. Yeah.
Yeah, Please Mr. Postman. I remember wearing that out. But I think the first record that I actually owned, Chuck and I both got records for Christmas from our Aunt Janet, and she gave Chuck Boston, their debut album, and she gave me Kansas Point of No Return. And two excellent selections, I think, that set us on our course.
You can hear some influence from both those bands, I think, in your music. Obviously, I noticed a lot of Rush influence, and there was a couple of songs I thought had a little Yes or a little Blue Oyster Cult behind them.
We're pretty big Rush fans, all three of us. I personally have been to like 8 of their concerts, so that is a heavy influence. And yeah, all the other bands you've mentioned, we pretty much like or have albums of theirs.
A lot of people will point out a few other influences too, like Peter Murphy or REM or David Bowie. I don't know. We get a lot of different varied things that people say about what the music sounds like, but Rush is often mentioned.
Well, you can hear it especially in the guitar riffs.
Yeah,
there's a couple songs but Mercury definitely had a strong feel to that.
Yeah, there was a part there that was almost by accident, or maybe not by accident, I can't remember, almost a little bit of a direct quote out of Tom Sawyer and people, and because it actually is the same chord, and I guess it had the same beat for a second.
For Mercury and Retrograde?
Yeah, in Mercury and Retrograde. So it had that sound, so people were like, whoa, okay. we weren't out to hide our influences. We're not like sweeping them under the rug. We are proud, card-carrying Rush fanatics. And but I think our music encompasses a broader spectrum. But if we could ever approach what those guys have done, I mean, that would just be an incredible thing. And I don't think any band will ever do that.
I appreciated your music because I grew up heavily influenced by 70s rock. I listened to WBAB growing up on Long Island, and it was a hard rock station on the island. And, Zeppelin, the Yes, the Who, everything like that. And matter of fact, I used to play paintball back in the 80s with a band that was a Rush cover band.
Cool.
And they actually looked like Rush, too. Poor guys.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah, poor guys. But it would be funny. We'd be playing paintball on every other Sunday we would play. And these guys would be so hungover after doing their gig the night before. That's
the life, man. Go out and act like Rush, play Rush music, and then wake up and paintball. So isn't that wild though? I mean, everybody has we're listening to WYNF, or they know what the FM radio station that was their station, And nowadays people just don't give a damn because the radio sucks so bad. And that's what's exciting about the podcast. It's like we're gonna get to a point where we'll be like, yeah, I remember listening to Rob's show or whoever,
or the Daily Source Code.
Yeah, and
Accident Hash is a good place to hear music.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys have been on there.
Yeah, we've been on there a couple times now, actually.
So hopefully this next generation, maybe they'll be talking, 20 years from now about, oh yeah, I remember, XYZ podcast, and they'll hold it in that kind of esteem, that sort of place, because radio has completely lost that. No one cares about their radio station anymore. It just doesn't happen. So, rock on, man. This is great.
Well, we had the interesting experience last weekend, driving on a 4-hour road trip of just listening. We basically just plugged in my MP3 player straight into Bill's car stereo and just listened to it, and listened for straight 4 hours, and we're really thinking, wow, this is much more interesting than listening to the radio while you're in the car.
Yeah, Dan was taking me on a tour through the podcast because he's really out there and listens to it, keeps up with all the shows. I'm a big iTunes downloader kind of guy, and I've listened to a few things, but I'm not nearly as deep into it as Dan is. So.
Well, I'll ask you this then, Dan, since you're the big guy. What was the first podcast you listened to, Dan?
Probably the very first one I listened to was Daily Source Code. I've actually been listening to him ever since. I pretty much haven't missed an episode since May when I first started listening to him. Beyond that, a couple of cool ones I've been listening to for a while are like Geek News Central with Todd Cochran.
Yep.
I'm not sure, have you interviewed him yet?
Yeah, I interviewed Todd back in February, early March.
But beyond that, like Band Tracks is really cool. They have a good variety. Found a pretty cool one in the UK called Glastonbury Podcast. And it's a guy that's on, I think, he's in Glastonbury, UK, and it's just interesting to hear his viewpoint and stuff because he's, some right on like the shore of Glastonbury. He's got a complete Scottish accent. He's played our music. But yeah, Insomnia Radio is another one I've been listening to. David Lawrence's Personal Netcast. There's a few of them that I've been listening to for a while now.
Tell listeners what they're going to hear when they tune into yours.
Do you want to talk about it, Chuck, or do you want me to talk about it?
I guess I could talk about it from the perspective that I was kind of listening to it first before I was actually on it. Right now I live in Jacksonville and they live in Tampa, so I wasn't participating, and I heard the first few of them. The idea that we had was take the songs from Max Q, which is the record that we put out last year, and just talk about each one of the songs and then play each song. We had a lot of people from all over the world that were wanting us to play in their town, and it's kind of neat. When you hear a band, you want to see them live or talk to them or somehow interact with them. So the podcast for us was a way for us to kind of connect with people in a different way and actually talk about what the music means and this and that. We started getting a lot of subscribers each week, and the audience kind of gradually built up. By the time we got through every episode, we'd covered every song on the record. Now we're left with, I think we're going to try to maybe do some live performances and put them on our podcast, that type of thing, and just kind of have people find a little bit more about our daily activities and stuff as a band and maybe just as people.
The first 12 podcasts were all about, each one was about a different song on our record, so it really just gave our listeners something. When they hit the site, they found out about the band, they were able to find out more than just a few clips. They were able to get everything that they wanted to know about the band when they hit the website. And that really, I think, has hopefully sold a few more CDs through the website.
Well, one interesting thing that has happened is that, not only our own podcast, but the airplay on the other podcasts is starting to get sales. We had an email from a guy last week that he actually hosts something called the Schwagcast. He sent us an email saying, hey, I got your guy's CD, and we've been playing it on your podcast. He goes, I found out about you through Accident Hash. So it's starting to connect all the points where you have someone listening to another podcast, hearing us, buying our CD, and then playing us on their own podcast. So it's like we're getting promotion out of people, hearing us on other shows and also selling CDs. So
or like
very
neat connections happening because of that.
Yeah, and I think people are really gonna. Yeah, all the dots are being connected here. People are gonna start listening, hearing stuff that they didn't expect or didn't know about. Like I heard about a band called The Shapes on CC Hash's Accident, or CC Chapman's Accident Hash, and what a cool band. I went to their website and I couldn't find them on iTunes, so I wasn't able to actually download the tune. But went to their website and I was ready to pop my 99 cents into iTunes and get that song. So I think that we've got all the dots connecting here. We've got the artists, we got the listeners, and we've got the podcasters, and it's all a nice happy mix here, and it's a beautiful thing.
So it's kind of like having an audio street team in a way. We kind of right now we've been played on over like 50 shows, so it's and what's great about that is at any time someone can all also discover that by listening to one podcast. Well, they'll stumble upon that show that we've been played in. So it can happen at any time. That the further we get out there with these podcasts, the better it will be for us as a band, because it's like on FM radio, it gets played and it's done. But with podcasts, it's like permanent. It's there. It's always be an episode on that person's podcast.
Archived radio play.
Right.
That's nice.
One of the things that is our job as independent musicians is to find out ways to get airplay, because it's still really the way to get heard is for someone to actually run across your music through some other means instead of just kind of going into Amazon and maybe finding it or going to your website. FM radio long ago kind of stopped being accessible to independent artists, and then college radio was the way for you to get heard. And now college radio is also pretty much inaccessible to independent artists because they are being just hounded by the labels as far as pushing their product. So podcasts are the way that you guys are providing a valuable service for bands. You guys are replacing college radio for that type of task that we have to go out and do, which is show people your music. And the great thing is it's worldwide accessible, and there's this great, lovely, random thing to it where you don't know who's going to be listening or when they're going to be listening to it. So,
what's some of the most memorable feedback you've received because of the podcast?
Well, yeah, it was great. I was just telling somebody at a party last night. I sing in a choir, and we all got together last night. And they didn't even realize I was really in a rock band, so it's kind of funny. Anyways, I started telling them a story about something that's really, it feels great. A couple months back, we started getting correspondence from a soldier in Iraq who had said, I found your music on Amazon, bought your CD. It's getting the most rotation in my iPod, above anything else. And I'm talking to him, he's introducing his buddies over there to our music. And I guess they've got a lot of downtime where they're just, bored quite a bit of the time and just trying to think about other things than, shoot, I'm stuck in Iraq, So he started picking up the guitar. I guess he bought a guitar through musiciansfriend.com. He started playing guitar, and so I got an email out of the blue from him like, hey, I got your record, really digging it. I've just started learning guitar, and I want to learn the song that you have, and I can't find the tablature on the internet anywhere. And I felt like, man, here's this guy out in Iraq trying to play my song, and he thinks that there's even maybe tablature available for it, like I was like some guitar hero or something. So it really was great for my ego, but it felt great. I went ahead and I transcribed this song called Till We Say Goodbye, and popped it in the scanner. Took a little while to try. I've only gotten halfway through the transcription, actually, and sent it back to him. And then a couple weeks later, he sent me an email, said, man, I've been practicing like 2 to 3 hours a night, and I'm getting the intro down for your song, and I sent back another. So we started this conversation, and the last email I got from him, his first name is Marland. I think it's Jones. Marland Jones.
Or is it Harlan, I think?
Marland, I think.
Yeah.
Anyways, so the last email I got from him was the fact that he had recently moved from like one base to another in Iraq, and the convoy that he was on, one of the trucks in the convoy got hit by a roadside bomb, and his guitar exploded. It was in that...
Oh, jeez.
It was in that truck, And so he said I had to take a break from practicing for a few weeks, but I got a new guitar to replace that one. And so we've had some... It's been great to connect with one of those guys over there and know that our music is somehow keeping their mind off of where they are. Somehow we're feeling it all of a sudden in our own little way that we could have never imagined when we were recording our record in our practice space, that it would ever happen, that somebody out there in Iraq would be like, listening to our tunes on his iPod. So it's been a really uplifting connection for me, and I'm going to keep the email conversation going. And
it's a very cool experience.
Yeah, very cool experience. Stay safe, Marland.
Let's not forget to tell everybody where to locate your podcast.
They can go right to our website at www.thereverseengineers.com. If they want to go straight to the actual page, it would be thereverseengineers.libsyn.com. Either way, you can find the podcast and subscribe to it if they'd like.
When you're doing your podcast, how are you doing the recording and the editing? Are you guys doing that, or are you having your host do that?
For the stories behind the songs, those were all done with our Roland VS1680 with our the vocal mic we're actually using now to do this recording. We did that and then just burnt the CD and then made MP3s out of it. But some of our current shows have actually used the iRiver T30 and just used the mic that's on there to record it mono and then bring it into Audacity and edit it and output it as a stereo MP3 track.
What have you guys been doing as a way of promoting your podcast outside of the podcasting community?
I notified the local newspapers of our podcast, so that's one way we've been promoting podcasts.
We put out a press release, too, recently that went out to all the media about... we tried to take the success we've had with podcasts. I think our song Mercury in Retrograde went up to like number 5 at one point on the Podsafe Music Network.
Yeah, it's actually at number 7 right now on the Podsafe Music Network.
Yeah, so that we put a press release out about what some success we've had with podcasting and exposing our music. So I guess outside of the internet there, I guess the press release went into the internet, but it was kind of a general press communication about that.
At 1,600 subscribers per show, that's one of the larger audiences. So I was just curious what you may have been doing to help bring listeners into your show.
Yeah, I think a lot of them may just find it on the webpage. They're looking for the music and they click on the right buttons and they subscribe. And people are getting pretty savvy about it. I think a lot of people know what podcasts are now. So, but you're right. Yeah, we don't specifically seem to really promote the podcast as much as the music, and the podcast is a vehicle for hearing it.
when we started this podcasting of every song on our record, and really took the time to have, we brought a friend in who's a real creative guy and happens to be a great interviewer. I had no idea. So we did these series of, I thought, fairly in-depth segments about each song and really put some time. And people who hit the site, maybe they get kind of like, wow, that sounds great, I want to hear the next one. So maybe we had a kind of a quality about the podcast that made it appealing.
I think also the fact that we have traffic through our band site just for the people looking for our band through like Google.
Because we get like 100 new visitors.
Yeah, we'll maybe have like 100 people per day just looking at our band website. The Reverse Engineer Show podcast is like highlighted as the main thing on our front of our website. So I think that helps in the exposure. We have like the player, the flash player right there to hit play, and people listen to the podcast immediately as the main thing they can listen to on the front of our website. So then they get hooked and they probably say, I want to hear this, on a weekly basis.
Listening to your podcasts and the different shows you've had, I like the format you've done. I mean, if I'm in a band right now, I would be duplicating what you guys did. I think you've got a great format for a band, which is, the first podcast, which was the 45-second clips of each song, and then individual shows, which really talked about each song, get the listener involved emotionally into each song.
Yeah, I really felt that too. Even listening back as a listener, I was like, after you sort of warm them up and give them, you answer some questions about the song, then you play the song, their ears are really open to like, wow, these guys have sort of laid the groundwork and you've really primed them for the experience of the song, and it really worked, I think.
It's kind of weird. I have a few people that have told me that they've actually downloaded every song that we did, every episode of the Reverse Engineer Show and instead of listening to the CD, what they did is they strung all the podcasts together and they listened to that entire thing. So that was I was like, wow, that's like 6 hours of material or something like that. That was pretty neat. So maybe it turned itself into some kind of documentary on its own. I don't know.
What advice would you guys like to give out to any bands out there that aren't podcasting?
I would say, regardless of what the podcast is about, is as long as it's an audio documentary of the band they're in, that they should get involved. Podcasting can be cheap as buying a MP3 player that has a mic on it, and just when you're at a gig or before a show and you want to record it. It's a great way to even do like an audio diary of your band. Get involved. Go even record your shows and play live songs on your podcast. It's just another way a band can promote in a much more personal way.
Okay. And I think a lot, too, when you're in a band, it takes a little while between records. So if you turn somebody onto your record, immediately they'll turn around and go, well, when are you coming out with something new, And it's like, well, shoot, man, it takes like a while to do one of those. So it allows you to go ahead and quickly and inexpensively get something out to your listeners to keep them aware of you and give you a little bit different side of your band or introduce you to the personalities behind the music. Just kind of deepen the experience and really make them more than just a passive fan, sort of make them into a ravenous fan or
Well, it's also a great way to actually build our fan base in ways we never thought possible. The fact that within 3 or 4 months we've gotten 1,600 subscribers, it's a great way to really build a fan base and communicate with our listeners, because each episode we make sure to tell them, email us questions, send us an email so we can talk about it on the show. So there's that whole interactive thing with the fan that I think is really a very cool thing.
And when you put something on the website, because a couple weeks ago I heard an artist that I had never heard of. It wasn't on a podcast. It was actually on a late night TV show, and it was Kathleen Edwards, and she doesn't have a podcast, but she should. But one of the things her website was great about doing was she got a lot of behind-the-scenes pictures and fun stuff, and before you knew it, you really felt like you were in that world. You had a backstage pass with this person, and her music was amazing, and I downloaded a few tunes off iTunes, but I became a fan there because the content on the website really brought me into her world. So the more podcast allows you to do that in an audio way. So I think we've really added this whole new dimension to our website with this player and the podcast stuff, where if somebody wants to get into you and not just, buy the CD, but go a little bit further, they can, and it's easy for us to go ahead and broadcast that with this medium.
Dan, Chuck, Bill, I just want to thank you guys for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having us, Rob. That was a lot of fun, man.
Okay. Your official first podcast interview, so thank you very much.
Well, folks, that concludes our interview with the Reverse Engineers. Thanks again, guys, for coming on the show. I had a blast talking with you. And folks out there, please check out thereverseengineers.com. Great podcast and really great music. Well, at the end of today's podcast, we're going to end it with some feedback from Bruce Murray from the Zcast And yes, that's the same Bruce Murray that started us off the beginning of this podcast. So please stick around for that. And then following Bruce's comments, there is a promo from the Reverse Engineers that highlights 3 of the songs that are available on the PodSafe Music Network that you can download to play on your podcast. So please stick around for that also. As always, leave your voicemail comments at 206-666-HELP. That's 206-666-4357. Or send audio comments to podcast411@gmail.com. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Until the next time, this is your host, Rob, with Podcast 411, reminding you to listen different.
Hi, Rob. It's Bruce Murray from the Zcast at zcast.com. I just want to send you a little audio comment to say, first of all, it was a blast meeting you and chatting at the Podcast Expo last week in California, and that I'm sure after we've sufficiently recovered from all the partying that we'll decide to do it all again next year. But I also wanted to send you a note to wish you a happy birthday. Now, I know it's your birthday on November 27th because it's on the Podcast Pickle site. But the reason that it caught my eye is because November 27th is also my birthday. That's right, you, me, and Jimi Hendrix all share the same day. I'd sing you happy birthday, but unfortunately it's not PodSafe. AOL Time Warner actually owns the rights to the happy birthday song. And you know, they make about $2 million a year on royalties every time somebody sings happy birthday in TV or in the movies. So I will wish you a happy day, let you know that I'm a subscriber for life, and congratulations to you and your wife on your bouncing baby boy to be. Hopefully we'll get to see you next year at the Expo. Until then, I'll be listening different with Podcast 411. Bye for now. Zcast.com.
This is Charles Cody from the Reverse Engineers. The following songs are now available on the PodSafe Music Network.
That you say I do. It's not enough that your heart is true. We're different souls that happen to collide. If we can't walk the same path, if we can't dream the same dream, then I will understand. Tomorrow brings. I wonder what tomorrow brings. I wanna be a weatherman. I wanna be a weatherman. I look the storm right in the eye and wonder if I will survive. People think that I'm insane because I stand out in the rain. I wonder what tomorrow brings. I wonder what tomorrow brings. I wanna be a weatherman.
Those are songs from our latest CD, Max Q. Visit music.podshow.com to add them to your playlist. For more information about the band, visit thereverseengineers.com.